This, okay, amazing. Thank you. So, thank you for coming, everyone. This event is part of Disability History Month, which runs from the 14th of November to the 20th of December. So this year's theme is disability, livelihood, and employment, which is the forefront of the program. So we've kind of curated some events to hear the experiences and lives and initiate conversation regarding disability and the workplace specifically. Today we're joined by Iveta Pudilova, CEO of Happy Autistic Lady and also a UOB alumni. She'll provide a brief introduction about to herself and the business as well, how she started it with her sister, and her professional journey and the benefits and challenges of running a business while being neurodivergent. So I'll pass it over to you, Veta. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for the introduction and for having me. Hi everyone, I'm Iveta. I'm the CEO of Happy Autistic Lady, and we deliver neurodiversity training and awareness campaigns to help universities and companies boost their retention, reputation, and satisfaction. I am a UOB alumni. I studied politics and economics. I graduated in 2022, but I decided to stick around because I love Birmingham, and the support that the university has provided us with to help grow the business has been absolutely fantastic.
Amazing, thank you. So just to start with, can you share the inspiration behind founding Happy Autistic Lady and what inspired you and your sister to kind of get together?
Yeah, of course. So my sister, she was diagnosed autistic 5 years ago now, and she's quite a creative person. So she started documenting everything she was learning through art, and it started as an Instagram account. And if you scroll back through like 300 posts, you'll see the first post is literally a drawing that she made, and she took a picture of it on her phone. She applied one of those really ugly Instagram filters to it and uploaded it online. And since then, it kind of evolved. And it was a way for her to connect with the autistic community because she didn't know anyone else who was autistic at the time, but document everything she was learning and kind of reflect on what she found out about herself and about autism in general. And I, before, was working in social media. I was really passionate about social media and how you can use that to develop a brand and help organizations. And so in 2022, I joined her to help her just with her Instagram account because she was getting, like speaker requests and whatnot. And so to create a brand around it. And really within a month, we went from 3,000 to 10,000 followers. Just because we started posting consistently, we suddenly had a cohesive brand look, and people were giving us lots of positive feedback about, like saving the content to then show their teachers or the doctors or their family members to explain their experiences rather than having to verbalize them every single time. Because you all have little bottles of water on the table, and during the next hour, you might have a sip. And if the next hour I kept asking you, why are you drinking water? Why are you drinking water? Why are you drinking water? You'd probably get a bit annoyed and irritated, right? And so if you are neurodivergent or you're disabled or you have specific support needs and you have to keep explaining them to people, it gets quite tiring. And so we thought, okay, how can we create this into a product? And that's where our online shop, our e-commerce started. We created communication badges and stickers that help neurodivergent and disabled people self-advocate for their needs. And so thanks to my sister's autism diagnosis, I learned about neurodiversity. And then I started to support her with her Instagram, and we realized we could make it into a business. And during that whole journey of learning about our customers, I realized that I really related to our customers and to their needs and their experiences. And I thought, I wonder why I relate to them so hard. And so I went on a journey of understanding how to develop and grow a business, but also on a personal journey of actually realizing that I'm neurodivergent as well and navigating all of that together.
That's really cool, actually. Yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
like, when you came together and obviously explaining yourself to people it gets kind of like repetitive. So how do you kind of like change the narrative in a way and turn that into training and
So we turned it into training and awareness campaigns, partially thanks to the mentors that we had, but also thanks to the university. We were selling our products online, and we had quite a few universities reach out to us interested in buying our products in bulk. And that included the University of Leeds and the University of Birmingham. And we realized that, the Guild of Students, for example, every year they do campaigns and events for things like International Women's Day, Pride Month, Black History Month. And we thought, okay, but why aren't they doing anything about neurodiversity? There's Disability History Month, like, we're celebrating now, but nothing for Neurodiversity Celebration Week or Autism Awareness Month, which are very important and big celebration days. And so we reached out to them. We said, look, we're alumni, we do this, we're on the University Startup Incubator. What are you doing to support your neurodivergent students and make them feel included in the community? And so then we created the first ever awareness campaign with the Guild of Students last academic year. It went really successfully. We produced about 1,000 badges for them. Some of them included custom designs with the Guild of Students branding, and they were giving them out to students, and within a week they were all gone. And so then we realized, okay, these awareness campaigns are quite successful, and they help students and even staff members in companies feel included, but it doesn't solve the problem, right? It doesn't solve the issue of the lack of support. And so then we were like, okay, we need to start delivering training. And so it's been really a year of evolving and getting feedback and understanding what neurodivergent people actually need and what they benefit from the most.
It's interesting. And I would say that it's fair to say that that's a key milestone in your journey
Definitely.
as well. So is there any other milestones in your career as an entrepreneur that you could share?
I think you're right. One of the key milestones has been changing from being in e-commerce to leveling up to doing training and awareness campaigns, because it was a big step and it was quite scary. But a key milestone as well, thanks to the training and the awareness campaigns we've delivered, we've been able to make impact on a much bigger scale. So we've won quite a few awards thanks to that. We won an award from the Chamber of Commerce and the Inspirational Youth Awards, which I'm incredibly proud of. But on a bigger milestone, which happened just last week, is that we signed the West Midlands Transport and Police as a client. Wow. And so we've partnered with them to deliver a project, which is going to be the first ever project that is lived experience and expert led. And we're going to be raising awareness about the experiences of people with hidden disabilities using public transport. And we're also going to be collecting data and creating report on how West Midlands Transport can actually improve the experiences for those who are neurodivergent and have hidden disabilities. That hasn't been done before. And so we're really excited to see where that goes and how we can support them in making West Midlands more accessible for everyone.
That's really exciting. It's really amazing as well.
Thank
Congrats
you.
to that. So obviously that's a really big thing, and with the growth and expansion of the business, there might be some challenges. So has there been anything that's kind of been an obstacle or something to overcome, and how did you kind of overcome those challenges?
I think with running any kind of business, there's going to be several challenges, of course. But if you're a disabled or neurodivergent entrepreneur, those challenges might look slightly differently. The stereotypical entrepreneurial business challenges will be, finding the right customer or getting them and securing them. But then from a disability perspective, challenges can be as simple as, being able to access a space and go there and overcome certain barriers. And for me, I like to differentiate between kind of external and internal challenges. So an external challenge, for example, has been at the start of my business journey, when the business wasn't too established and we were still trying to, prove our credibility and prove that what we're doing is, valid and worthy of people investing their time and money in us. But alongside the fact that we are focusing on neurodiversity and that we're neurodivergent founders, often, I'd meet people who had biases or who had outdated opinions. And so there was that external challenge of not taking that personally and not letting that demotivate me from continuing with our business journey and learning that actually people who have these opinions or they voice these kind of things, having the strength to not take it personally, not let it affect you, also to learn and acknowledge that it's nothing to do with you. It's actually to do with them not having the awareness and the knowledge. And it's also been a learning journey of not getting offended, but then also learning how to navigate those conversations, to welcome people to learn rather than telling them off or giving them a sharp and kind of cut off response. And of course, that's also the nature of our business. The nature of our business is to teach people. And so it's been a journey of recognizing there's barriers out there for neurodivergent and disabled entrepreneurs. And unfortunately, that's the world we live in. And that you will have to learn to navigate that. And it takes time and patience and a lot of strength. But I found that the more open I've been about my neurodivergence, the more people have been curious to learn and want to put the effort in to learn. And that's helped me kind of network, meet people, but most importantly as well, not worry about people being biased and just know that, you know, people, you will find people who want to support you.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And would you say that like self-advocacy would be important in that process as well? Or
Definitely.
yeah,
Because with self-advocacy, you know, the ability to communicate your needs, and your strengths and your challenges, I found that the more you self-advocate, the more you inspire others to self-advocate as well. And I mean, we all have some degree of support needs. You know, even if you're not neurodivergent or if you're not disabled, you will have days when you're tired and your social battery will be lower. You'll have days when you're ill and you can't get out of bed to cook food and you'll have to ask a family member to cook for you. And you have to self-advocate for yourself. And I found with my friends and the community and, you know, entrepreneurial system in Birmingham, the more you self-advocate, the more people are inspired by you, the more they want to help you, but then the more encouraged and empowered they feel to self-advocate for themselves as well.
yeah, and that's really important, obviously, in the context
Yeah.
of running a business as well. And on that, with entrepreneurial skills, I think people have like a kind of like frame of like what it is and like what it takes to be a business owner. Do
Yeah.
you think that there's any neurodivergent traits that can align with being an entrepreneur as well?
Oh, 100%. I think the neurodivergent traits that overlap with being a good entrepreneur, to me, you know, a good entrepreneur should be someone who is organized, who's a good communicator, who is creative, innovative, someone who's passionate, right? But then when you think about the traits of an autistic person, autistic people tend to be very direct, clear communicators and very organized and structured. ADHDers tend to be very creative and innovative and spontaneous and energetic and sociable. But then also so many studies prove that people who are disabled or people who are neurodivergent tend to be more passionate because you might have special interests or simply because you have to overcome more in life. And so you know, overcoming that adversity makes you someone who's very passionate and motivated and determined. And of course, you know, not everyone has those traits. Everyone is very different, and so it varies person to person. But at the end of the day, what I find really cool is that, you know, anyone could learn to be structured and organized. Anyone can improve their communication skills. But if you being a literal thinker and a direct communicator is a trait of yours because you happen to be autistic and that's the way your brain functions, it's not a skill you've learned, it's something that you've literally born with. And so you could learn to become an entrepreneur, you can learn those skills, but for many disabled and neurodivergent people, it's not a skill, it's literally the way your brain works, which I really think is quite impressive.
Yeah, and I guess a strength in the end at the end of the day.
Definitely.
So kind of on that, with we kind of talked about support systems earlier and like part of the reason that you stayed at EOB as well. So what's the importance of support systems and the resources for disabled entrepreneurs, and like is there any specific networks that anyone would benefit from knowing about?
So I think support systems are really important, especially if you're an entrepreneur, because you know you're running your business by yourself, or even if you have a team, you are the one leading them, and it is a very unique experience. And so having other people around you who are doing the same, it makes you feel part of a collective. It gives you that sense of accountability. But I think as well for disabled entrepreneurs, it's even more important because there's a big overlap between, you know, mental health and disability. People who are disabled, unfortunately, do tend to have, you know, for example, higher rates or likelihood of anxiety or depression and whatnot. And having community can really, really help with that. So I think as a disabled entrepreneur community is all the more important. There's so much support at the University of Birmingham, Be Enterprising. And I kind of joined Be Enterprising when I was doing my undergraduate degree. And for me, it's been very much a journey within that community. During my undergraduate degree, I was able to do a module, like a work placement module. So it wasn't a year in industry, but it was a module in industry, essentially. And at that point, I had a very different business idea. But I was able to focus on running or creating that business and fostering that business idea as part of my module. And my mentor was someone actually from the Be Enterprising team. So thanks to that, I learned about business development. And I never actually pursued that business or brought it to life because it focused on women's experiences in street safety and sexual harassment. And I was in my final year of my undergraduate degree, so I was very busy, but also because it was a very sensitive topic, it was quite emotionally overwhelming for me as a young person and to be doing that all by myself. But thanks to that experience, I realized that I really want to pursue entrepreneurship. So I felt like an entrepreneur without a business idea. But I stayed part of the enterprising community. I went to the social events to meet other people who had that passion and wanted to achieve that goal in life. And then I joined the program that they run every year. It's called Let's Get This Startup Started. And it was several sessions about marketing, business development, understanding your customer. Again, I didn't have a business idea, but I wanted to learn, and I knew that eventually I would have a business idea. So I went, and eventually all of this started with my sister, and the university has an amazing startup incubator, to which we successfully applied and we got a spot. And the amazing thing about it is that, one, of course, you get an office space, so you have a physical space to actually go to and meet with people and have that physical community. But you also have workshops and mentors and access to so many networks. And even after the whole year, and when you graduate, you're not kicked off. So yesterday we had an event there for the new students where I spoke. And we've been doing the business now for 2 years, but genuinely, it massively kicked off last year when we joined the startup incubator because of that accountability of having a community. And without being on the incubator, we wouldn't have been able to work with so many universities, or we wouldn't have even gotten the partnership with the West Midlands Transport. So that's kind of been all thanks to the enterprising.
That's good. It's good to have a good support system behind you. And then obviously to help with demand and everything.
Yeah.
So as things pick up, how do you balance those demands with your sister's support needs as an entrepreneur?
How do I balance work and being an entrepreneur with also having support needs? So I think there's a very common misconception or this pressure that entrepreneurs have to be working 24/7. And there are some people on the incubator or, in the world who do that. And it is hard to see that and not feel pressured. Even yesterday, we had a lovely event. And before that, I had a meeting with an advisor. So it was about 4 hours of speaking with people. And the moment I got home, I had a verbal shutdown and I couldn't speak. And I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I'm meant to be coming today to campus to be talking. What if I'm not able to talk? And I experience verbal shutdowns quite often. And so for me, and of course that can be really isolating and saddening to see, I have 2 meetings in a day and then I feel physically unable to work. And then my friends will be having 10 meetings a day and they're completely fine. But I think it's important to let yourself be upset by that. I would never tell people, ignore that. Yes, be upset by it because it's unfair and it sucks. But try and focus on the positives. Let yourself mourn and be sad about it, but focus on the positives. And so I always try to do things like schedule in time for myself, block out time. I have a list of things to do if suddenly my support needs spike, to immediately stop with work. But most importantly, to be open about your challenges, even if it's amongst friends or family members. because that keeps you accountable and it makes you realize, okay, actually, if I'm having verbal shutdowns after an event, that probably means I should be doing less events, or your family and your friends will kind of keep you in check. And so it's, yeah, don't compare yourself to others, especially if they're not disabled, but even if they are, we all have different support needs. It's okay to be upset that you experience barriers, but focus on your strengths. Because for myself, for example, I can hyper focus. And so while I might have to take a whole day off, or I might only do 30 hours of work in a week, I will do 60 hours worth of work in 20 hours because I can hyper focus. And if I listen to my body and I rest when I need it to rest, and then I work when I feel productive, it'll be so much more efficient.
Yeah, that's really important, I suppose, for anybody as well, just to take a moment to breathe,
Yes.
really. So, as a mentor for aspiring young women or neurodivergent entrepreneurs, what kind of advice would you offer to guide them?
What kind of advice would I give to aspiring entrepreneurs? There's so much advice that could be given, and I think it very much depends on the person. But my advice is always to kind of have faith in yourself. Lots of people say, just start, just reach out to this person. But I know how hard it can be to take that first step because of all the work that will follow. But do have faith in yourself, in your ability to learn new things, to pick yourself up if things get hard or if there's a challenge, and your ability to ask for help when you need it. Because you've already gotten this far, and even just if you're exploring the idea of entrepreneurship, or you have an idea, or you're already bringing it to life, that is already so much to be proud of. And so have faith in yourself to take it to the next step, wherever that might be and whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah, that's important. And kind of on that, so asking for help, obviously, as if you have a disability, whether that's
Yeah.
hidden or unseen or anything like that, it might be hard to, make that first step to disclose it. So,
Yeah.
do you have any advice for that for some people?
So disclosure is a very big topic.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I'll say before giving like practical tips on sharing your disability with people is you'd be surprised about the amount of people who are actually disabled in the entrepreneurial space. On the startup incubator that I'm part of, in my year group, a third of us are neurodivergent. And a third of those people, well, that third, some are open about their neurodivergence, some aren't, but they've told me because we focus on neurodiversity, so they feel comfortable to share that with me. But 55% of business owners in the world are neurodivergent. So more than majority are neurodivergent. And about 20% of freelancers in the UK are disabled, right? Because freelancing is more accessible to many people. And so you will find that if you start that conversation with someone, there's a very high chance they will tell you that they are disabled or neurodivergent as well, or that they have a family member or a friend or someone who is. When it actually comes to sharing with people and doing that whole process, I always like to tell people, okay, think about, is it actually relevant? Because sharing your neurodivergent and explaining your experiences can be very draining. Think about, is this person actually relevant to share it with? Are they going to be in my life? And if I do share it with them, are they able to support me? Or are they going to pass me on to someone else to share it with that person and share it with another and another? So do preserve your energy. And then it might think about how you want to share it, and your communication preferences. It might be a passing conversation in the corridor, being like, oh, I have this disability and I need this help at an upcoming event. Or you might want to have a longer conversation and schedule in an hour with that person. So make sure that, that person as well will have that in their calendar so that you receive the time and the energy from them that you actually deserve and that you want. At the end of the day, if you don't feel comfortable to share because you have had bad experiences in the past, or you're just not sure if you're comfortable around that specific person, it's also okay to talk about the topic in general. I very much just like to bring up neurodiversity as a topic to strangers, and then I see their response. And if their response is positive or neutral, then I realize, okay, this person knows something about this topic, or I feel comfortable and safe to share with them. If their response is very negative and very ableist, I immediately know that this is not only a person that I don't want in my life because they will not be accepting of me and they will not be able to support me, but I also, if that is an ableist response, it's not your responsibility necessarily to teach them or to kind of educate them. And so then at that point, you need to protect your emotional and physical well-being.
Yeah, I think it's like a really good piece of advice. Like, test the waters with people before you go full in.
Exactly.
So, yeah, thank you. That's all the questions I've got. Just wondering if anybody else has any questions for Iveta. Yeah, start at the back.
Because you are diagnosed individual, do you find that because you don't have the same level of trauma as someone who was put into a special capacity and you face that trauma coming into university, and then you're almost told you should declare automatically? How do you feel that you're able to help, let's say, train university staff to understand that, okay, as a PI, I might need more support, but doesn't mean that I will be able to do work. Like, I was just wondering, do you feel there's a difference in how you will communicate your disability, how I would communicate my disability?
Of course, so everyone's experiences with their disability are very different. And so at Happy Autistic Lady, of course, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is that we're lived experience led. But the way our training works, it's not about our lived experiences. So, for example, let's say if we're delivering training to university, to a PI or to managers or whatnot, our training isn't about me coming in and speaking about my experiences like we are here right now, for example. There is an opportunity for people to, for audience members at our training events to ask about our personal experiences, but that's usually separate. And our training focused on neurodiversity disability is always about the community as a whole, but we also always explicitly state, everyone's experiences are different, taking into account, as you kind of mentioned, different, mental health, trauma, disabilities, education backgrounds, all that information. And so while our personal experiences are important, they're not the centerpiece of our training. Yeah, of course.
Change in diagnosis criteria.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed pre-2013, so I was diagnosed Asperger's.
Yeah.
That's no longer a term that is regularly used.
Yeah.
So when we're trying to explain, oh, you have Asperger's, and that was what you were diagnosed with, so you can't say, okay,
Yeah.
I have autism because that wasn't the label you were given.
Yeah.
How are you going to communicate that to the newest audience?
That's a really good question. At the end of the day, if you yourself have been diagnosed with Asperger's and you feel that describes you and your experiences the best, then continue using that term. And if someone asks, okay, what does that mean, or how does that differ from autism, then you kind of explained it perfectly just now, saying it was diagnosed pre-2013, but that's no longer a medically recognized term, as you said, and now that is classed under the autism umbrella, because it is. People who were diagnosed with Asperger's pre-2013 would now be diagnosed autistic, but by a medical professional would most likely be seen as autistic individuals who might have lower support needs. But I feel like you described it perfectly yourself.
Because I just always find that's an issue I
have
with PIs, especially in like the research field. They're like, oh, so how do we support compared to
of course.
with autism? And then again, like you might have co-diagnoses, and how do you explain that it's not all related to either one? Say, there's all these other conditions alongside. How do you then just say you're neurodivergent, or do you then further explain that
Yeah.
Also,
Again, that's completely up to you. If you have co-occurring neurodivergencies, I know of plenty of people who, you know, rather than saying, oh, I'm dyslexic, I'm autistic, I have ADHD, will say that they're neurodivergent, simply because the first option is quite a mouthful, right? And it can, again, get tiring repeating that constantly. Um, some people might say that they're neurodivergent because they have co-occurring neurodivergencies and they don't feel comfortable or safe sharing each type of neurodivergence that they have. But if, let's say, you do feel comfortable sharing each type of neurodivergence that you have, and you feel that they better explain your experiences, then, you know, why not? We'll share that with people. At the end of the day, it's a way to describe yourself. And the term neurodivergent itself isn't, you know, a medically recognized term, but it was created in opposition to the term disorder, to recognize that neurodivergent people aren't disordered, that they don't need to be fixed, and that it's simply a different way of thinking, behaving, learning, and all these different kind of things. So it's very much a personal experience. And the term neurodivergent, thanks to that, is really essentially an identity term. So I myself describe myself as neurodivergent just because going through all the co-occurring neurodivergences I have, for me, is a bit of a mouthful.
okay. So it's just like at the moment you're going through applicating sensory safe spaces, and I was just wondering, how do you come to people with like the power to change that?
Yeah.
How do you explain to them what space? Because you can't fit for every
Of course.
neurodivergence.
Yeah.
And again, should there be an open space that anyone can use? And would it, what would you say if you came into a space? What would you want it to look like?
Yeah. I suppose the context of where that space is very important. With some of our clients, when we deliver training to them on, for example, how to run accessible events, we always emphasize the importance of bringing in feedback from the community and making sure that our training and everything that they do is data backed as well. So let's say you work at university and you're running an event, a conference or something, you know, requesting participants to send in their accessibility requirements in advance and filling in maybe like a feedback form or a survey in advance about their experiences or about what they would enjoy in a quiet room, these kind of things. Because as you said, it is impossible to meet every single person's accessibility needs and support needs. Even my sister and I love her to bits, but she loves stimming vocally and using fidget toys that are loud. I need a quiet space. I need my noise cancelling headphones on. And so if I'm spending time with her and she's stimming and fidgeting, but I have high sensory sensitivity, then we clash, right? But those are different support needs. And so it's really important to engage the community and ask them questions and send out surveys and do all that data and then kind of try and adapt it to their needs. Yeah,
Yeah,
go on.
ahead.
It was just the difference between space, a quiet space, and then space where, let's say, you're having something, where you might require external help. How do you introduce the difference? How do you let someone aware that maybe this could lead to a seizure, or maybe this could lead to maybe needing further another person? And how do you communicate the difference?
Is your question, how do you communicate a difference between a quiet room? Okay, between a quiet room and a room. What was the other one? Sorry.
Being so like more of a space that is for specifically for people who have sensory disorder or like seizures or things that require, you will need the privacy, but you might need.
Okay. Again, I guess it depends on the context and who you're communicating it to. Let's say if you're communicating it to event attendees who might then be using the rooms, it can be very simple things, just as having signs with, you know, titles for the rooms and examples of how those rooms could be used. If you're doing an event at the start, to mention that, you know, when you welcome guests, saying, oh, you know, we have these rooms, you know, that kind of stuff. If the person you're communicating it to is maybe your team and you're trying to advocate to how those rooms at the event, then it would just be to highlight the benefits of each, the needs of each, and then again, getting feedback from the community, and having that feedback from community members, from event attendees saying, I want this room, I need this room, because then you have that evidence to advocate for it.
And you know that saying that people want to attend because these rooms aren't available. Even recently, there was an event at the medical school, quiet hour, but it wasn't really a quiet hour because he went out to the door.
Yeah.
Quiet space was on patio, raining,
Yeah.
and it wasn't an accessible space, so she did have mobility issues. So I was just wondering how you mitigate, even if they're saying that you've created neurodiverse safe, how do you mitigate?
Oh.
How do you program and reassess this?
I think that's quite difficult to do, unfortunately. Unfortunately, quite often event organizers will say that a space or an event is accessible, but it doesn't end up being that way. We found the reason why that tends to be is because they don't consult with people who have lived experience. So they either don't get feedback from the community in advance, or they don't partner with third-party companies like ours that are lived experience and expert-led. If you are yourself an attendee of that kind of event, and it happens that it's not accessible or it doesn't provide what they said it would, best thing to do really is to try and find someone who's running the event, a staff member, and to advocate to them, communicate that, explain it, see what they can do. And hopefully they should correctly respond positively and respectfully and support you and help you. And if they don't, and that space is physically inaccessible to you, then it's really unfair and it's not the way it should be. But there's nothing really that you can do in that situation. And the best thing, the safest thing for you to do in that situation is probably to leave for the sake of your own physical, mental, well-being, and then to follow up after with the event organizers to share that with them if you have the energy and the capacity to be doing that. Again, it sucks, to be completely honest, and you shouldn't have to be advocating to that extent, because these things should be in place, especially if an event organizer says that it will be there. But that's really all you can do, unfortunately. Yeah.
Pete?
My question is, I'm trying to piece it together in my mind. So, given that so many neurodivergent people opt for freelance careers, and given that, say, if we take autism, for example, there's high rates of unemployment because they find the workplace so inaccessible.
Yeah.
What is it that workplaces and managers can do? What can they learn from the entrepreneurial way of work and being that could be adapted into the workplace to make it more inclusive?
Okay, what can workplaces do from the entrepreneurial world to make it more inclusive in the corporate world for neurodivergent disabled people? I would say definitely the flexibility. So, if you run your own business, you have the flexibility to set your own hours, to work where you want in a physically accessible space. But then as well, if you're working for yourself as a freelancer, or even if you're running your own company, you don't have to be self-advocating to anyone. You don't have to be requesting workplace adjustments from anyone, because you implement those yourself, right? As simple as that. But what workplaces can learn from the entrepreneurial world is, flexibility is actually a great benefit to their staff members. And if you allow people to work how, where, and when works best for them, people will be more productive. And that's essentially what you want at the end of the day, right? You want people to be productive and to do their job right. And if you are able to do your job better working from home, then work from home, allow that. Of course, there are workplace adjustments in place that an employer has to legally provide you with. But even so, it can still be difficult to access that because not all line managers will be supportive and inclusive. So that's really important to get training and for them to learn about the importance of this. But then as well, at the end of the day, it's up to you to self-advocate and to request those workplace adjustments. But how are you meant to know what would benefit you if you've never had that support before, if you don't even know what support is available? So again, this is where, training comes really important and comes in handy because it teaches managers how to, identify what different people would benefit from. But you yourself can learn, okay, these are all the support mechanisms that I could try. Let's try them all.
Very good. Yes.
My question is, what are some of the methods or strategies that you use when training employers or senior members of staff that respond most positively to get them engaged with neurodiversity as a topic and how to be inclusive in the workplace? I have Tourette syndrome, but I'm lucky that I can mask a squat neurotypical very easily because my symptoms don't present anymore than they used to anymore. So I'm thinking about the ways in which I can kind of advocate for people at the university and some of the ways in which you found it work.
So how do we get people who don't know much about neurodiversity or realize why they should care to care? I think that's a really good question, and that's something that we struggled with at the start. Because of course, there's the ethical reasons why you should care. Simply the fact that everyone should have a shot at succeeding in life and should receive the support they deserve. But quite often decision makers who are high up in universities or in companies do tend to be of an older age and from a generation where neurodiversity and mental health, was never really a topic. And so we've learned to kind of speak their language, and their language tends to be money. And this is something that Be Enterprising helped us with, was finding, realizing the importance of data. And we found that up to 8,000 autistic students drop out of higher education every year. That's just autistic students alone. That doesn't include dyslexic, ADHDers, Tourette's, OCD, all that, right? That's just autism. And we couldn't find the other data because unfortunately there's a lack of research. But we looked into, that up to 8,000 autistic students drop out of higher education every year. And that's a minimum of £73 million in tuition in one academic year. And that's a conservative number, assuming that these students pay the standard £9,000, right? But some students will be doing master's degrees, some students will be international students who pay much, much, much higher tuition rates. And that's 1 year. These students, if they're doing an undergraduate degree, they'll be at university for 3 years, right? And that's 8,000 autistic students who are dropping out every academic year, not just a one-off. And so when we started saying that to universities, especially to career placements advisors and recruitment advisors and EDI officers, they realized oh shit, this is a big issue that we need to do something about, especially lately with lots of universities going bankrupt and lots of universities targeting international students. We tell them, why are you targeting international students? Yes, it's valid, but focus on the retention of the students you already have. Yeah. So the moment we hit them with that number, they start caring. With corporates, same thing. We found that 50% of neurodivergent staff are actively thinking of leaving their workplace. And that's not that they're thinking oh, I might leave. It means that they're looking for jobs. They are on the hunt for a better employer that is more inclusive and more supportive. 50% of neurodivergent staff. And if 50% of neurodivergent staff were to leave their companies tomorrow, the UK would have to pay 30 billion in turnover costs. 30 billion, that's a lot of money. That would re-damage the local economy. Mm-hmm. And that again is a conservative number because the minimum or the average that it costs a company to lose an employee and hire someone new is 10 grand. But for smaller, bigger companies, for roles that are higher, that turnover cost will be way, way, way higher than £10,000. Not even accounting for the time it takes the HR team and the energy. And so even for example, like to give you an example, I met with HSBC directors and they knew that neurodiversity is important. They do some like celebration stuff and whatnot. But they don't collect any data about it. They collect data about disability in general, but not everyone who's neurodivergent will describe themselves as disabled. And ADHD legally isn't classified as disability, even though it is disabling for many people. And so those statistics aren't actually really accurate. And the moment, and before I had that meeting with them, I looked at how many people work at HSBC in Birmingham. There's an estimate of how many of those are neurodivergent. 50% of those I actually think of leaving, multiplied by that 10 grand. And it came out to about like £30 million in turnover cost for them, just for Birmingham. And I had this meeting with the director and I told them like it would cost you 30 million to lose those people who are actually thinking of leaving you because you're not supporting them. So that's how you communicate.
That's a really good method.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. It is. Because it's money, but then also the number.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you tell someone, 8,000 students or 73 million pounds, that's quite a lot of money, even for a massive institution like this. So
yeah, the impact is the impact. So
yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions? Yeah.
Anywhere that you can sort of get into.
Definitely. So we are trying to target more universities now, of course. In terms of the corporate world, the business world, we tend to work mainly with tech companies because in the tech industry, quite a significant percentage of people tend to be neurodivergent. It's estimated that about, I believe, 55 or 60% of programmers are autistic or dyslexic. And so, of course, in the tech industry, there's a big focus on, well, there hopefully should be a big focus on, the satisfaction, the retention of these staff members. And alongside tech, banking as well tend to be quite neurodivergent heavy. Yeah. 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 At the end of the day, because 20% of the, sorry, is it 15% of the population has a disability, 15% of any company will have disabled staff members. It is believed that the percentage of disabled people, neurodivergent people is much higher because not everyone, knows about neurodiversity. So not everyone realizes that they are neurodivergent, just as similarly as I didn't until a few years back. And so, we could be targeting any sector, but because we're just at the beginning of our journey and because of what's been taught to us through B enterprising, the importance of picking a client and kind of excelling at that, we have decided to mainly target universities first and then companies that have the most neurodivergent staff, because with them, it's easier to communicate the importance of it because they're going to have higher retention costs if they have more neurodivergent employees. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions? So one more.
So you know how like most neurodiverse students, are you working on creating course that I know they are trying and they have something practical with them, but some of them have a very traditional view of autism, so there might be an autism mentor in the basic training, and aren't aware that they might prefer a particular way of learning, and they go through the basics that go with the neurotypical. I was just wondering, like, you ever thought about working with those types of staff?
So the staff members who provide like mentorship.
Mentorship and so they're normally funded through
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So right now we're in the process of digitalizing our training, putting it online. so that our clients can access it more easily and on an international based scale. That will also allow us to kind of, expand a bit more and tailor everything that we do. And so part of that will include content tailored to literally every single staff role. Right now, we have training for teams at university, for example, about how to support neurodivergent and disabled students to access a job, to help them overcome barriers in education, to help them apply to university in the first place, to help them with their mental well-being and all these different kind of things. Because companies and universities tend to be so big and everyone has a different role to play. Because we deliver our training in person right now, we are limited by the types and amount of training modules we can provide. But once we put it online, the goal is to then have also very niche training topics and modules, which will include things like these for mentors, for anyone who's involved in the life of a neurodivergent student or staff member. Yeah, thank you as well.
Does anyone else have any other questions or yeah?
So share more about the contract you guys got with the West Midlands Transport.
Oh yeah, of course. So we're doing a pilot project with them right now. And there's going to be two key aspects to it. One is conducting a study about people's experiences using public transport in the West Midlands. And this study is going to be for everyone, but with a focus on neurodiversity. So there's questions there about sensory experiences, accessibility needs, all these different kinds of things. And the purpose of that study is to understand the experiences of neurodivergent people and those with hidden disabilities, but then also to compare it and to see, how the experiences differ between those who are neurodivergent and those who aren't. And then we'll be analysing this data, and our team will then create a report from this with also kind of ideas for future initiatives and how to improve that. We're actually going to be on campus December 4th, so next week, Wednesday, there's going to be a Christmas marquee right by Old Joe, and we're going to have a stall there selling some of our products. We'll also be there with a Transport West Midlands, trying to get people to fill out the survey. So if you're around on campus and you want to come by to fill out the survey, we'll give you like a free donut or a free cake or something. We'll be giving out free food in exchange. So it's going to be the survey, doing the study. And then we're also going to be doing a lot of video content to raise awareness about neurodiversity. And it's going to include different topics. So we're going to interview some of the people who will actually fill out the survey to share their experiences. I'll be interviewing the West Midlands Police and transport safety officers for them to share, how they can support you if you're using public transport, to raise awareness about what they do and kind of humanise their roles. But then we'll also be doing video content around, tips of what can help a neurodivergent disabled person using public transport. And then I'll also be sharing some of my personal experiences. And the whole point of that video content really is to put it all over socials and marketing and comms, to provide practical advice, but also to raise awareness so that, we encourage the conversation about neurodiversity and disabilities in the region, but then also so that people who don't really know much about the topic know how to be a bit more inclusive and supportive when they're using public transport and they maybe see someone using like a sunflower lanyard or, kind of advocating for themselves. So, yeah, of course. So we're starting off with that, and then we have a few other kind of ideas lined up with them, but that's still uncertain, so we'll see.
Next week is the beginning of it all.
Yes, next week, December 4th.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? We can wrap up. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, Iveta, for your time, for your insights.
Thank you.
And sharing more about Happy Autistic Lady and what you've got coming up as well. So obviously next Wednesday, 4th December.
Yeah.
Obviously it's a really good opportunity to meet her again and then fill out the survey, make an impact. But thank you so much for today. Thank you for joining us. And Alex is here with pizza. So yes, I'm sure you'll be around for the next couple of minutes. So if you wanted to speak to her one-on-one, she'll be here. But yes, thank you everyone for your questions and thank you for attending the event. If you wanted to get involved in any more events, you can do so on the webpage. And the email, you can reach out to the student EDI team via email, which is studentequality@contacts.bhem.ac.uk. Okay, amazing. Thank you. Thank you.